West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Also say it was interesting to watch how this party, especially last night, is leaning into issues that maybe were perceived as vulnerabilities. I'm talking last night about immigration. You had Senator Chris Murphy, who was one of the co-authors of that legislation that Donald Trump killed, along with James Lankford of Oklahoma, the Republican there. He came out and said, we worked hard for months and months and months. We got the deal Republicans said they wanted. We presented it to them, and Donald Trump came in and killed the bill. Kamala Harris says, I will sign that bill when I become president. Going hard, very interesting. Wow. This is an issue that Donald Trump thinks he has on Democrats, and the Democrats last night say, no, actually, you killed that bill. We are going to be on the offensive on immigration.
Yeah, I mean, it's a new Democratic Party. This is a different type of Democratic Party than the type that I ran against. I mean, you know, they were always very easy to go after, and they'd, like, you know, sort of run around in circles, and they were for the war before they were against the war. They were this, they were that. You take an issue that they were nervous about, and they'd run away from it. And you just, it would be just easy to run against them. Now they're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. Take the issue that's your weakness, make it your strength, and go straight at them with it. And it's hard to beat that. I will say also, Tim, we used to run against Democratic parties. It was like the old Simpsons cartoon where they had Republican conventions and they held up banners that said, we don't care about people. Then they go to the Democratic convention, they held up banners that said, we can't run things,
we
right?
hate ourselves.
Yeah, we can't run things. And this is a Democratic Party, I mean, just ruthlessly efficient. I have not seen a convention night after night after night that sets it up this well. This is not the Democratic Party that you and I are used to seeing.
No, the way that they co-opted all these traditional Republican themes, now they aren't Republican values really, but Republican themes last night was, you know, there's been a lot of talk about the freedom, the way they've co-opted that word. But last night it was much more than that. The patriotism, there's the USA placards, there were more USA chants at the Democratic convention than the Republican convention. I think that there was more mention of God and the Bible. You saw that in a lot of speeches, like Hakeem Jeffries, Oprah, Tim Walz. That you saw last night. Football, obviously. Patriotism, talking about the Olympic team. The Republicans are complaining there were drag queens in the opening ceremonies of the Olympics. You know, last night they're like, we love our Olympic heroes. Yay! I know it was like a very American, heartland America thematically. And that was, you know, obviously very savvy. And it's something that sometimes Democrats in the past were uncomfortable with or ran away from.
Right.
Not last night.
They always were uncomfortable about it. If somebody started a USA chant in a Democratic crowd, everybody would turn around and look at them. What are you doing? What are you doing?
Plant?
What? What? Who let the Republican in? But now you're exactly right. But there's a reason, too. This is not sort of just faux patriotism. This is, I mean, it's because Donald Trump has opened the door. When Donald Trump brags about saying America sucks, when he brags about saying America's on the decline, when he brags about saying that America is a stupid place, Well, we have a lot to be proud of as Americans. I've always believed that. Doesn't matter what party I'm in. I love this country. I'm proud of this country. And most Americans feel the way I do about America. So when you have one party that's actually attacking America all the time, then yeah, I'm going to hold the USA placard up and I'm going to go USA, USA, USA. And it works. It's the same thing with immigration. They killed the toughest immigration bill in history that James Langford wrote. And so it's working because it's true.
Yeah. And the Democrats are showing bravery and they are leaning into issues. They brought in last night, and it was one of the most emotional moments, the parents of Hirsch Goldberg, hostages, talking about basically, and in the most empathetic way, saying that there is agony on both sides and we need to bring them home, and talking about this as not a political issue, it's a humanitarian issue. And you contrast that with Donald Trump trying to, pit Jews against each other. And it was, as you said, they're leaning into the issues that are even challenging for them, and an entire night of freedom and joy and freedom. And boy, I wouldn't want to be running against those Democrats right now.
Not at all. And Willie, we're going to have they're going to be here later this morning.
Yeah, that to me, I think Donnie's absolutely right. That was the most emotionally striking moment of the night, particularly when Mrs. Goldberg called out to Hirsch at the end in an unscripted moment, leaned into the mic and said, "If you can hear us, be strong, survive." They will be our guests a little bit later this morning, as you said. Caddy, your impressions from last night as a part of this week and leading up to the moment of the week, which will be the acceptance speech tonight by Vice President Kamala Harris. Again, just stopping and noting what an extraordinary moment in history it is, not just because of who she is, but because of how she got here, where a month ago, things were very much up in the air in the Democratic Party.
And look how united and excited the Democratic Party is. Yeah. And we went through all of those weeks before Joe Biden stepped down with people second-guessing Kamala Harris and saying, actually, you know what, maybe he shouldn't step down because she would be the next choice. And there are so many concerns about whether she's going to be a good candidate. And we've seen over the course of the last 4 months what an exceptional candidate she has been and how she's rallied the Democratic Party behind her. I thought one of the striking things last night was Tim Walz's speech. It was about 16, 17 minutes by my judgment. Joe Biden spoke for an hour on Monday night. It shows what you can do in a political speech when you don't need it to go very, very long. He did it. He told the stories. I think he had, just by virtue of the fact of who he is and playing up this coach theme, it does do something to reach out to rural, white, perhaps non-college educated voters who might be leaning for Donald Trump. I mean, he looks like the kind of guy they could be comfortable with. I don't know if any of those voters are going to switch sides because of Tim Walz, but he, of all of the speakers we've had here during the course of this week, he has done the most to get there.
He's running a very Friday Night Lights campaign right now, is Coach Walz.
There's something about a field goal and we're in the end, and anyway, we've got to keep going.
Very good. Yeah. Field goal. Nice reference. We'll get you there. Let's listen to a little bit of Governor Walz's speech last night.
Now, I grew up in Butte, Nebraska, a town of 400 people. I had 24 kids in my high school class, and none of them went to Yale. But I'll tell you what, growing up in a small town like that, you learn how to take care of each other. That family down the road, they may not think like you do. They may not pray like you do. They may not love like you do, but they're your neighbors. And you look out for them, and they look out for you. So while other states were banning books from their schools, we were banishing hunger from ours. We also protected reproductive freedom because in Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and the personal choices they make. And even if we wouldn't make those same choices for ourselves, we've got a golden rule. Mind your own damn business. That includes IVF and fertility treatments. And this is personal for Gwen and I. If you've never experienced the hell that is infertility, I guarantee you, you know somebody who has. And I can remember praying each night for a phone call. The pit in your stomach when the phone would ring, and the absolute agony when we heard the treatments hadn't worked. It took Gwen and I years, but we had access to fertility treatments. And when our daughter was born, we named her Hope. Hope, Gus, and Gwen, you are my entire world, and I love you.
John Heilman, brevity is the soul of wit, they say. That never really absorbed into my being. But at a convention, 17 minutes, you define that as brief. And it looks like the governor did that. Did he deliver?
I think so. I mean, look, I agree with you, Joey. We're used to these long convention speeches. You know, Bill Clinton's a great example where, you know, he ends up going over time and then everybody says, wow, it was just so brilliant that we're fine with that. And it's almost surprising, you know, when someone gets up and comes in well under what everyone expects to be the time. I will say one of the things about this convention is that they have been running late every night. And, you know, we thought at that, remember back when Joe Biden started as late as he did on Monday night, there was all this discussion about, you know, how unfortunate it was that he started out of prime time. Everybody has been going out of prime time every single night, including, I believe, Tim Walz started roughly around the same time that Joe Biden did on Monday night. And for that purpose, if nothing else, coming in at 15 or 16, 17 minutes is good news for him. There wasn't a word wasted in that speech, and I continue to be stunned by a guy who had never performed on the national stage before. Every time you put him in front of a big crowd, whether it was that first introductory speech or this one, he's, you know, knocking it out of the park.
Yeah, you know, Tim, that's the surprise. You know, we sit around this table, I sit around this table, we talk about, oh yeah, you know, when the quarterback was rolling to his left and he threw the 70-yard pass, he should have passed it like 5 more yards to the right. Like, why didn't he lead the receiver better? You know, you know this very well because you've been close to it. When you get under those bright lights, you don't know who's going to hit their mark and who's not. And 99% of the people don't hit their mark. I wonder if you're as surprised as I am that not just Tim Walz, but also Kamala Harris, somebody that people did not think was up to the job a month and a half ago, that she couldn't step into that spotlight, that they've both filled the stage and they're hitting their marks like they've been doing it their whole lives.
Yeah. And I've worked for some pretty good politicians that didn't step up when the spotlight got bright, and they're still great and talented individuals. You just don't know. And I think that the vice president, maybe even her team would admit that, like, at the beginning of the vice presidency, she was a little uncertain, right? It's tough being the second person speaking for. And so how are you going to do when the spotlight is there? And she really has stepped up. I think that both her and Walz, to the brevity of the soul is the soul of wit point, have been keeping it tight, though. They have a clear message. They know what their message is. It's a little different from what Biden's message was.
By the way,
they're not getting
that
off
first night, Tim, and again, I know this sounds like a small thing. She came out first night. She waved. She spoke for 4 minutes. She walked off the stage, and Mika and I looked at each other and said, brilliant. Everybody else would have overstayed their welcome. Like, you're right. They're hitting it.
And night two, when they are in Milwaukee, where Trump had his convention, packed Pfizer Forum, and they cut to her from the convention, and she's just waving. You see the huge freedom in red, white, and blue up there. I know it looks good. It was hitting the marks on advance and on her performance.
By the way, can we talk about that as well? We're talking about how they're taking Republican themes, Republican symbols, and making them their own. Again, freedom's a great example because of abortion rights, because of reproductive rights. But also think about that. She decided freedom worked better than democracy. And she's so right.
It was definitely right. And this is why I'm a never Trumper, right? The democracy threat cares to me. It
matters. You're right.
It's play into the Morning Joe green room, right? But you got to get beyond that. You got to speak to other folks as well. And I think that she really has landed there on freedom and on patriotism. One other person I should just shout out as the never Trumper last night, Jeff Duncan, Lieutenant Governor of Georgia. Very conservative, like much more conservative than me, like a far-right social conservative, spoke last night, said clearly, I disagree with her on policy, but if you vote for Kamala Harris, it doesn't mean you're a Democrat, it means you're a patriot. Right. Great line. And again, it's like that freedom and patriotism. We're trying to speak to the types of people that might not traditionally be Democrats, but are like, we're sick of this. We're not going back. We want to trust that these folks share our values, and they've been focused on that.
It is Thursday, the 22nd of August of 2024, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef. Precious, our little Yorkie, is the door girl, and she was up a little bit ago. I presume she's gone to take another little nap, some beauty sleep. So with that, we will be seating you directly for our especially special daily special, Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. A little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life. Just a little, because, some people, can't eat the tacos that are too spicy. And that's okay. All right? It is okay. Well, another grand time at the DNC, wasn't it? But, before we get into that, I will give you a short update on our little Precious. She did go into the vet yesterday for her weekly IV drip. They did also a blood draw for another blood test to do a spectrum, which is a little bit more expensive, but they don't do it every week, thankfully. Anyway, that will give us another reading on the white blood cells that are indicative of her demise. So, yeah. But she still seems pretty good. She, I got to tell you, she seemed a little listless later on last night. And I put her up on the bed so that she could sleep on the bed, which she did all night. And then decided to get down on her own when I awoke and arose around 5 a.m. here on the West Coast. And so eventually we fed her, and she came in and was under the desk where Gunner usually is, and I didn't really see her. So I began to move my chair. And Gunner likes to sleep under the my desk here, in the studio, and rest his big old head on the metal legs. The roller legs. He likes that. I don't know. He's a bulldog, an English bulldog at that. And so the little Precious, she's seen him do that, and she wants to also. It's so cute. But I didn't see her down there, and I began to move the chair, and she jumped, and I don't want her jumping. No, I don't want her being frightened or, too much adrenaline rush. I just don't think that's good. But anyway, I put her up on the bed, and she decided, no, that's not where she wants to go, and she may have gone outside to visit with the neighbors. I don't know. Or taking another beauty sleep. She's still spunky, and that's a good sign. So good. Well, let's talk about that DNC last night. Some people said, it wasn't as vibrant as the previous two nights. I think it was pretty damn vibrant. In fact, I came away with, real Americans rock we rock, okay? And we rock Nazis right upside the face. Nazis don't like that. I think they like a little bit more of the marching music venues and styles. Yeah, they like that, I guess. Anyway, I thought it was quite wonderful. The artists were quite wonderful. one more reminder, we are live streaming the DNC, so check it out. If you go to netrootsradio.com, click on that player, or you can pick us up on TuneIn and any of the other platforms. But TuneIn is relatively, I'll just say it to you bluntly, it is a great backup, in spite of it being TuneIn, and to our player, just in case. But go to netrootsradio.com. We have our temporary player there, and it works just fine. And you can listen to no talk, all convention. No commentary, all convention. And that was good. So that's how I paid attention. Oh, that's right. I did turn around and watch C-SPAN. For some reason, they have C-SPAN 1 up in the 700s on my TV, whereas C-SPAN 2 and 3 are like around, I don't know, like 40 and 50 something. I hate that. Anyway, located it, and I thought the acts were quite wonderful. Yeah, so what else? Better than a Super Bowl halftime show? Damn right it was. And I thought Tim Walz gave a rousing Pop Warner speech. Win one for the Kipper. And another thing that's just a small note about the cruelty and just, I don't know, the bad faith, the bad behavior of MAGA. Not to say that we don't have idiots on our side, okay? But questioning the, quote, masculinity of Gus Walz because he's a 17-year-old kid that's on the spectrum. I think that if you're neurodivergent, does that mean you're on the spectrum? I don't know. He's neurodivergent. Very, you could say he wears his heart on his sleeve. And how could one not be touched when old Gus there stood up and sobbed and said, "That's my dad." He's turning around to his sister and to other people there on the delegation floor. "That's my dad." How could you not be touched by that? Well, MAGA was touched into mocking it and questioning the our masculinity, whatever that is. We lack the fortitude not to cry and be proud of your father. The only way to express emotion for your father is to get blasted out of your brain, get on front of a podcast camera, and rant about how bad you guys have it because you were born with a goddamn silver spoon up your ass. Oh, that's the great masculinity that we have to model our behavior after. Give me a break. Second of all, what is this media's, obsession now with masculinity? They couldn't get enough Hunter dick pics. Now we're talking about democratic masculinity. Well, could be that the democratic masculinity is the kind that knocks the bar off there on the pole vault because your tights didn't hold in your junk tight enough. You can rest assured that if Donald Trump was able to pole vault, he wouldn't have that problem. He'd make the height. Okay. Well, are we being crass and crude? Damn right we are. A little get back is a little get back. They stole the American flag and pretty much made it into a swastika. Well, we're just taking it back and turning it back into the Stars and the Stripes as the founders originally intended. All right? The chant of USA and being patriotic to your country is not reserved just to the Nazis. We're taking it back. We're not going back because we're taking it back. We didn't salute the flag. We didn't care. Give me a break. All right. I'll just say, J.D. Vance, Donald Trump are the very definition of coastal elites. Let's be clear about that. On the other hand, I also want to put to bed the lie that middle America doesn't care about getting into Ivy League schools, top-notch schools. Come on. My dad came from a fairly small town, Pollock, South Dakota, right smack dab in the middle of the east and west borders on the border of North and South Dakota. Craziest thing. I mean, it's right in the middle and on the border. The farm was actually 2 miles into North Dakota, but I guess the nearest post office was in Pollock, so the farm was in Pollock. They voted in South Dakota, even though the farm was in technically North Dakota. Craziest thing. That town had fewer than a few hundred people. Tim Waltz went to a big town. He had a couple hundred people. My dad taught in the same one-room schoolhouse my grandma taught in. For a very short period of time, because then he went off to North Dakota University, I believe. Yeah, North Dakota University. And at the age of 16, by the way. Began teaching at 16 in the little one-room schoolhouse Grandma taught in. And then he was off to North Dakota University, finished 4 years and 2, and then went to Stanford. So I'm just saying, people from small towns, you can go to really big schools and not be pretentious dicks. Like who. My dad was in the same class as Anthony Kennedy, our former Supreme Court justice who gave up his seat on the Supreme Court and got mad at Trump when they announced his public resignation and they started walking back, and suddenly Anthony stopped mid-step and began to wag a finger at Trump. And it looks to me like he said, "That's not what we agreed to." And then Trump patted him on the shoulder and said, "Come on in here. Let's talk in here." Now remember, Anthony Kennedy's son was working at Deutsche Bank at the same time. So let's, something's up. Anyway, my dad said that during his time there, Anthony Kennedy was known as Mr. Constitution. And then he went on to become Supreme Court Justice. Yep. So, I don't know Anthony Kennedy's background if he came from a small town. All I know is that Tim Waltz came from a big town of 200. None of his classmates went to Yale. But my dad came from a town of, I don't know, I think there was like 70 at one time. And he made his way to Stanford. Well, that's because he was exceptional. And I'm not saying that just because he's my dad. He was very exceptional. Okay, well, I think that some of us on our side are proud of our fathers. I think so. That's my dad. And I got to tell you, Mom's got a story to tell, too. It is a tale. And I've told it a few times, and we'll tell it some more as we get on. But why don't we go ahead and give you a rundown on what we have in store for you here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy on this fabulous, and it is quite a fabulous, Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. Well, it looks like if I can get the tab open, suddenly my mouse is bouncing all over the place. What are you doing? Oh, yes. At the top, of course, that was the Democratic Party is not the one that your conservative grandparents ran against. Just letting you know. Okay? Because it's not. We're not hippies. They can kick. We're punks, and we punks kick back. And they don't like it. Too bad. On the rest of the menu, a Marine Corps veteran who tried to fake his own death after a falling out with a Virginia-based militia group, we reported on this when it happened, has pleaded guilty to illegal possession of ricin. Right-wing militia group. Utah lawmakers want voters to give them... I'm sorry, let me start over. I don't know what's happening here. Okay, Utah lawmakers want voters to give them the power to change ballot measures once they're passed. Oh my God, will it ever end? Apparently not. And a federal judge temporarily blocked exploratory drilling for a lithium project on sacred tribal lands in Arizona. Well, that treaty's going to get broken like they always are. After the break, we move to the chef's table where European milk and cheese producers have become the latest target in a simmering trade war with China. You know, in northern China, they do have milk and cheese products, just so you know. And Pakistan authorities charged a man with cyber terrorism over misinformation that sparked the riots in the United Kingdom. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. As usual, we'll do the usual as we usually do lately, and that's to tuck right into this first offering here at the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. With this small reminder, follow me on social media at Justice Putnam, and you will have quick access to the show notes and links diaries that I post 10 minutes before showtime, and that way you can read the full actual articles by the actual reporters. So at justice.com on social media. This first offering is by Matthew Barakat out of the Associated Press. A Marine Corps veteran who authorities said tried to fake his own death after a falling out with a Virginia-based militia group pleaded guilty yesterday, Wednesday, to illegal possession of ricin, a biological toxin. Russell Richardson Vane IV, age 42, of Vienna, Virginia, had been in jail since his arrest in April. At a plea hearing yesterday, Wednesday, in federal court in Alexandria, Vane admitted that he used castor beans to create ricin at his home. Vane came to authorities' attention after an online news outlet reported that a militia group, the Virginia Cocoas, had severed ties with him because they were alarmed by what they considered his loose talk about homemade explosives. The Cocoas questioned whether he might be a government informant, according to court papers. Authorities searched Vane's home and found a plastic bag with castor beans along with a handwritten recipe for extracting ricin, according to an FBI affidavit. Subsequent tests confirmed the presence of ricin. At earlier court hearings, Vane's lawyers argued that prosecutors overstated the danger of Vane's conduct and said it was virtually impossible for ricin produced in the home to be used as a lethal weapon. They also said that Vane had never threatened anyone. Prosecutors, though, said Vane's actions were alarming. They said there was no legitimate reason for an ordinary person to produce ricin, and they also expressed a concern about Vane's efforts to fake his own death. Prosecutors introduced evidence that Vane tried to legally change his name in Fairfax County Court, and then he posted a fake online obituary of himself. At yesterday's plea hearing, U.S. District Judge Anthony Trenga agreed that Vane could be released until a sentencing hearing for November. He faces up to 5 years in prison, but would likely receive far less time because that's how they do it with people who are white extremists making ricin. His plea deal does not include any recommended sentence. A call and email to Vane's attorney seeking comment were not returned. Schoenbaum of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Utah's Republican-controlled legislature will ask voters in November to relinquish some of their rights to lawmakers who want the ability to change state ballot measures after they have passed. Frustrated by a recent Supreme Court ruling, lawmakers called a special session yesterday, Wednesday, in which both chambers swiftly approved an amendment to Utah's Constitution that would grant them greater power over citizen initiatives. The legislature used its broadly worded emergency powers to hold the session. If a majority of Utah voters approves the amendment this fall, it would give lawmakers constitutional authority to significantly rewrite voter-approved ballot measures or repeal them entirely. Democrats decried the decision as a power grab, while Republicans argued it would be dangerous to have certain laws on the books that cannot be substantially changed. The proposal would let lawmakers apply their new power to initiatives from past election cycles. The Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A federal judge has temporarily blocked exploratory drilling for a lithium project in Arizona that tribal leaders say will harm land they have used for religious and cultural ceremonies for centuries. Lawyers for the national environmental group Earth Justice and Colorado-based Western Mining Action Project are suing federal land managers on behalf of the Ho'opono tribe. They accuse the U.S. Bureau of Land Management of illegally approving drilling plan by an Australian mining company in the Big Sandy River Basin in northwestern Arizona, about halfway between Phoenix and Las Vegas. The case is among the latest legal fights to pit Native American tribes and environmentalists against Joe Biden's administration as green energy projects encroach on lands that are culturally significant. U.S. District Judge Diane Humatewa granted a temporary restraining order late Monday. According to court documents, Humatewa is suspending the operation until she can hear initial arguments from the tribe, Arizona Lithium Limited, and the Bureau at a hearing in Phoenix on September 17th. Well, that brings us to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Hey, kids and parents, it's back to school time. As you shop for school supplies and get ready for class, make sure you have emergency plans in place. Did you know that emergency preparedness plays a major role in school life? Throughout the year, schools actively prepare for natural disasters, outbreaks, and other emergency situations. Students and parents need to be aware and learn what to do during an emergency. Every family should build an emergency kit, make a family disaster plan, and be informed about events that could affect their community. Parents, take a few extra steps to help children be prepared. Make sure they know the full name, address, and phone numbers of parents or guardians. In our high-tech world of cell phones, memorizing emergency phone numbers is very important. Include a copy of this information in their backpack. Other items to keep in their backpack include water and non-perishable snacks, a pocket-sized first aid kit, a whistle to alert others for help, and a list of allergies, medical conditions, and medications. Make sure their school and teacher have a copy, too. Be familiar with different routes and ways to travel home, like walking, taking the bus, or riding home with another student who lives nearby. Establish a secret code word with your child and whoever takes them home from school to protect against an unauthorized person picking them up. This list is a great starting point to prepare your student for the upcoming school year. Customize these steps to fit your child's capabilities and needs. Ask school administrators and teachers about emergency preparedness plans so you know what steps they are taking to keep your child safe. Many schools have guidelines on how to shelter in place during natural disasters, how to secure classrooms during an emergency lockdown, and how to teach preparedness curriculum to students. Remember, emergency preparedness is important for everyone. Children who are prepared are more confident during stressful emergency situations. By following preparedness guidelines, parents, children, and school staff can improve their safety and peace of mind. For more information on school emergency preparedness, visit cdc.gov/children/schools. To learn more about disasters and emergency preparedness, follow @CDC Emergency on Twitter or visit emergency.cdc.gov. So, let's get prepared. Have a great school year.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them? By their clothes, their age, the way they speak? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer break
because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a single father of 2 who works 3
part-time jobs and still can't put enough food on the table?
Or maybe a mother who cleans offices at night,
hoping to find meeting leftovers to take home to her hungry family.
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time
landing a job and getting back on his feet.
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. People you pass by every day but never knew were hungry. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 Food Bank Strong, and the Ad Council.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. And it doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution. And you'll get a wondiferous pair of Netroots radio stickers for application to your backpack, your bumper sticker, or your banjo. Well, it's up to you which backpack you want to put it on. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage. Because you are our biggest donor. Netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. Ohio Secretary of State Frank LaRose is again under fire, this time for attempting to undercut a citizen-run redistricting commission ballot initiative which threatens to undo politician-drawn gerrymandered maps. Initiative organizers challenged the action in the Ohio Supreme Court August 19th. Citizens Not Politicians submitted a ballot description of the constitutional amendment after Issue 1's certification in July. But the notoriously partisan LaRose and his staff rewrote the description. Organizers said it, quote, may be the most biased, inaccurate, deceptive, and unconstitutional ballot language ever adopted by the Ohio Ballot Board. The measure proposes a 15-member citizen commission of Republicans, Democrats, and Independents, none of whom can be current or former politicians or lobbyists. It also forbids redistricting for partisan advantage and requires a fully transparent process. The new initiative was proposed after multiple gerrymandered maps by legislators resulted in years of litigation. Among several misleading statements, the Secretary of State's description says it will, quote, establish a new taxpayer-funded commission of appointees required to gerrymander the boundaries of the state legislative and congressional districts, unquote. The Ohio Constitution clearly states that descriptions for ballot measures be true and impartial. We have more at AmericanDemocracyMinute.org. I'm Brian Beal.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1980. That was the day that Joyce Miller became the first woman ever elected to the executive board of the AFL-CIO. In her 2012 obituary, the New York Times described Joyce's commitment to women's rights in the labor movement, writing, Miss Miller saw union membership, collective bargaining, and labor contracts as the road to equality for working women. And she believed that women should be a part of union management to make sure that attention was paid to issues like equal opportunity, equal pay, parental leave, child care, health insurance, and discrimination in the workplace. Joyce grew up in Chicago, where she earned her master's degree in education from the University of Chicago. She first entered the labor movement as a worker at a gumball factory while attending college. After graduation, she became the education director for the Amalgamated Clothing Workers Union in Pittsburgh. She remained dedicated to union education for rank and file members. Joyce was a founding member of the Coalition of Labor Union Women, or CLU. She served as CLU's East Coast vice president, eventually being elected CLU's president in 1977, a position she would hold for 15 years. Under her leadership, CLU worked as a powerful voice for women's reproductive rights, improving childcare, and increasing the number of women in union leadership positions. In 1993, President Bill Clinton named Joyce Miller the executive director of the Glass Ceiling Commission. The purpose of the commission was to gather testimony about women's experience in the workplace and to draft a report of their findings. Of her career, Joyce said, "I came to the labor movement with stars in my eyes. I saw it as a vehicle for social change, and I never changed my mind." Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com. Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River. In the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 58 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting highs only around the mid-70s today, with partly cloudy skies this morning. Will become mostly overcast during the afternoon with winds out of the west at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Then cloudy early with some clearing expected late tonight with lows in the low to mid 50s, winds light and variable. And then rain showers in the morning with scattered thunderstorms arriving in the afternoon, highs in the mid 60s, winds out of the west-southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, and we are expecting over a quarter inch of rain. We just want enough to, well, put out any wildfires that may be started by these thunderstorms. Grass pollen is rated low in Rogue River proper. The air quality index for the region is in the good range at 22 parts per million, and that daytime UV index remains high at level 7. Remain your vigilance in taking care, please. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 29.93 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles, and relative humidity is at 78%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. London is 68 degrees and cloudy. Paris is 79 and sunny. Rome is 90 degrees and sunny. Kabul is 68 degrees and fair. Hong Kong is 89 degrees and clear. Tokyo is 82 and mostly cloudy. Auckland, New Zealand is 53 and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 61 degrees and cloudy with a small craft advisory on the bay and offshore. Chicago, Illinois is 72 degrees and sunny. And New York, New York is 75 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world.
wrap at the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. European milk and cheese producers have become the latest target in a simmering trade war with China. The Chinese Commerce Ministry said yesterday, Wednesday, that it would launch an investigation into subsidies given by the European Union and EU member countries for dairy products that could lead to tariffs on their export to China. The announcement came one day after the EU released a draft decision to finalize tariffs on electric vehicles made in China, in a follow-up to provisional tariffs announced last month. The tariffs have been denounced by the Chinese government and automakers and threaten to set back the industry's efforts to go global. The dairy investigation will cover a range of products, including fresh and processed cheese, blue cheese, and milk and cream with a fat content of more than 10%. A Commerce Ministry notice said it will look at subsidies under the EU's Common Agricultural Policy, as well as those given by 8 European Union countries, including Italy, Finland, and Croatia. The Commerce Ministry previously opened investigations into European brandy and pork exports at various stages of the EU investigation into Chinese subsidies for electric vehicles. The tit-for-tat investigations have raised fears that a full-blown trade war could be gradually emerging. The EU's draft decision on final EV tariffs made mostly minor modifications to the provisional tariffs. Autos exported by BYD, the largest EV maker in China, would face a 17% tariff, while those from Shanghai-based SAIC Motor would be hit with the highest rate of 36.3%. Tesla, which exports autos from China, was given a tariff of 9%, quote, at this stage, end quote, after it requested an examination of the specific subsidies it had received. A delaying tactic, eh, Ellen? The tariffs are subject to the approval of the EU member states. A final decision must be made by early November, 4 months after the July 5th effective date of the provisional tariffs. Babar Dogar and Brian Melly of the Associated World Desk brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Authorities in Pakistan arrested and charged a man with cyber terrorism for his role in spreading misinformation that led to widespread rioting in the UK earlier this month. The suspect was identified as freelance web developer Farhan Asif, age 32, said Imran Kishwar, Deputy Inspector General of Investigations in Lahore. The man is accused of spreading misinformation from YouTube and Facebook about the British teenage suspect in a stabbing attack that killed 3 girls and injured 10 at a July 29th dance class at Northwest England. The false information claimed that the suspect was a recently arrived asylum seeker and had a name that suggested he was Muslim. After the misinformation led to a violent mob attacking a mosque near the site of the stabbing the next day, police took the unusual step of clarifying that the suspect was born in the UK. It has been widely repeated or reported in British media that his parents are from Rwanda and said to have Christian beliefs. Channel 3, now an account on Twitter social media platform that purports to be a news channel, was one of the first outlets to report the false name. Ali Al-Sakati, a Facebook account for the channel, said it is managed by people in Pakistan and the U.S. Oh, Elon doing more work for our enemies. The site's editor-in-chief posted an apology July 31st for the misleading information published in a recent article on their website, Channel 3 Now. We deeply regret any confusion or inconvenience this may have caused. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, so do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will be live streaming the final night of the DNC, preempting regular programming. Tonight, starting 4 p.m. on the West Coast, that's 7 p.m. on the East. So stay tuned to Netroots Radio, and we will meet up here tomorrow for West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.